Celine and Walter were a happy married couple. They were content with their lives and were planning on having a child. Within a few months of trying, Celine found herself shopping from store to store, picking up things for her nursery. The couple's friends and family were overjoyed when they got the news that Celine was expecting. Things were going great. Celine and Walter were busy making arrangements for their baby's arrival. That was when Celine received a phone call. Celine burst into tears. Her mother had passed away. She was deeply grieved. Her mother was the only other family she had besides Walter. Her father passed away a few years ago, and she didn't have any siblings. Celine grew up in Tennessee, in a beautiful ranch-style house tucked away amidst the greenery and nature of the woods. After she got married, however, Celine moved with Walter into a small apartment in the city. Recently, Celine got a visit from her mother's lawyer. He came to Celine's apartment with some property papers. Celine's mother had left the family house as inheritance for Celine. Celine missed her mother dearly. She spent a lot of time looking through old pictures of herself and her family at the old house. She had so many childhood memories there. Her parents always tried to keep her happy and be there for her. Celine wanted to raise her child with the same love and compassion. She thought perhaps she and Walter could move to the family house. After some persuasion, Walter agreed. The house wasn't located too far from where they currently lived, so Walter wouldn't have a problem getting to work. It still was, however, an hour-long journey every morning, but Walter knew once the child would be born, they would need the extra space. Celine and Walter packed all their belongings and moved to the family ranch house. Celine was now 6 months pregnant. It wouldn't be long before they would have a beautiful child in their arms. Walter had requested his boss for a paternity leave. His boss was reluctant at first, but eventually agreed to give Walter 2 weeks off of work. Walter was saving the leave for the last 2 weeks of his wife's 3rd trimester. He wanted to be there to help Celine out. Since the moment Celine stepped back into her childhood home, she had been organizing and redecorating the house. Celine's mother had left all the furniture and belongings just as they were before. Celine was engulfed with memories all around her. As she went through all the rooms, she looked through old pictures and familiar toys. She wanted everything to be ready for the baby. Walter left for work every day early in the morning and wouldn't be back till 8 or 9 at night. Celine would wake up with Walter and prepare breakfast and leave the house with him. Walter would drive off for work and Celine would go on her morning stroll. The houses in the area were quite isolated. The nearest neighbors were a 20-minute walk away, and shopping meant you had to drive out far. Celine and Walter went out on a big shopping haul once every month. Celine enjoyed the lovely environment. Sometimes Celine would walk to the park. The people around here were kind and friendly and cared for one another. "Richard, Henry, at the park so early? How is everything? How is your mother?" "We're good, Celine. Mom's at home. She's fine. What's up with you?" "I'm great. Where's your elder brother, William? I haven't seen him around. And his friend, George?" "Oh, William and George are out of town. They went to Georgia." "Georgia? All of the sudden?" "Yeah, I heard them talking about searching for someone." "All right then. Have fun, you two. See you around." But usually, Celine would stick to walking the trail through the woods that bordered her backyard. Celine remembered her parents would take her down this very trail to the creek. Her father would show her how to skip rocks on the water, and sometimes the two would even try catching small fish there. Celine chuckled, remembering the day her mother was horrified when Celine brought home a live crab from the creek. Things were going well. As Celine came closer to her due date, Walter became all the more excited and nervous for the big day. Every passing morning became even more stressful for him. Listen, Celine, if you feel the slightest pain, call me immediately. I'll be here as soon as I can. Don't worry, Walter, everything will be fine. No, Celine, don't try to wait it out for me to come back home. If you sense something, we'll go to the hospital immediately. All right, Walter, there's still another whole month before the baby comes. Take it easy. We'll manage everything when the time comes. Celine waved at Walter drive out of the garage. She closed the front door and headed out to the backyard. The skies were cloudy today, and there was a soothing, cool breeze. It was the perfect weather to take a stroll down the trail. Celine began walking. She heard the crunch of the branches and twigs beneath her sandals. It was a long trail, but the walks every morning made her stronger. It made her feel healthier than she ever was before. Celine was halfway down the trail, in the middle of the woods, when suddenly she felt a piercing pain in her abdomen. She stood still for a moment and stretched out before she continued to walk. But the further she went, the more she began to feel a constant cramp to the sides of her stomach. Celine was a little confused. Was this what false labor pain felt like? Celine was only 8 months pregnant. Celine searched around her. She spotted a dry log and decided to take a break before continuing. The sun was now shining through the leaves. The forest ground was speckled with spots of bright sunshine. Celine could hear the water running across the creek in the background. She was almost there. As she was about to sit down, her sandal caught onto something and she stumbled back. She let out a small cry and lifted her feet. She had stepped on a sharp piece of splintered wood. Celine held her feet as she watched the blood drip onto the ground. Celine searched her pockets. She held her head when she realized she left her phone on the kitchen table back home. Well, the good news was the phone wasn't lost in the woods. Celine stayed positive. At least she had a tissue in her pocket. She wrapped it around her feet. After about 10 minutes, Celine got up again. She took in the fresh air. But when she had walked a few more steps, she was overcome with an intense pain. Celine had no choice but to sit down. She was unable to walk. She barely managed to lean against a tree and took shelter under its shade. Celine began to drop pearls of sweat. Her back felt like it would snap into two. The cramps started to happen more frequently. Celine became anxious when she came to the realization that this wasn't a false alarm. She was going to have the child. Celine tried to get up. She had to get back home and call Walter. But the pain had increased so much that Celine couldn't move. Celine closed her eyes as tears began to drop down her cheek. She took deep breaths and tried to assess her situation. Even if she would take a break every 5 minutes she walked, it would take her half an hour to get back home. Celine pulled through the pain and started to walk back to the house. But it wasn't before long that Celine started to black out. She felt dizzy and nauseated. She stumbled to the ground. Celine lay there in the agonizing pain. She looked up at the bright green leaves above her and wished someone would hear her cry, but she was too exhausted to speak a sound out of her lips. Celine heard a murmur in the distance. Were there some people nearby? She had to call for help. Celine opened her eyes. She was shocked to see she wasn't in the woods anymore. She was in a hospital. She jumped up and looked around. How did I get here? Who called the ambulance? Walter was sitting by her side, sleeping with his head on the bed. Startled, Walter picked up his head and rubbed off the sleep. Celine, you're awake? How are you feeling? Walter walked to the hospital crib and cradled his child in his arms. She's beautiful, just like you. Celine let out tears of happiness when she looked at her daughter's face. But when did this? How did I don't remember anything. How did you find me? Everyone is saying it was a miracle. The neighbors called the police when they heard a baby crying out in the woods. The police found you unconscious on the ground, and the baby was laying next to you, wrapped in a cloth. They immediately called for an ambulance and brought you here. I heard the news. I was devastated. I thought you were hurt. I thought our child was hurt. I couldn't believe how strong you were in such an adverse situation. The doctors said things could have gone wrong for both you and the child, since it was a premature birth. They couldn't stop praising you for how well you handled it. How did you do it, Celine? Walter, I don't know how it all happened. I don't even remember giving birth. It was a miracle. The pain was intolerable. I thought I was stuck there in the middle of the woods. I couldn't move. Everything started to get hazy. Everything was going dark. All I could make out was a bright, white figure standing in front of me. Before I fainted. There was someone there. No, it couldn't be. It couldn't have been a person. It was something beyond this world. It was unreal. Something saved me. Something saved our child. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.